had the word potential, and baseball happens all the time. Well, 6 years later, there was a knock on my classroom door, and we sat down and had a conversation. And up until then, all of this was just helping a kid get buried and getting a nice tombstone. Benny said, Stapes, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay, Benny, and I'll let you do the rest. The very first graduate ever, I think he's like in his 30s now. He's old. He got gray hair this time. Beni Artreche.
We don't say old, we say classic. Just say it. No, it's a great honor to be here tonight. As I get into my story tonight, I look out at Stapes that started in the living room. It started with you looking at me and saying, we're gonna do this. And I look out and I'm just, wow, humble. It's amazing. As I prepared this speech, Stapes asked me to come up here and do this, and he didn't really have to ask. He just said, Benny, I need you for this. I said, I'm there. Because anytime I needed him, he's there. And any of you that have been helped by Stapes know that to be true. So as I started reflecting, like, what am I going to say? I remember I did a speech when I was graduating college, being the first student, and I was like, well, what can I say? Time has passed. Some time, a couple more grays, a couple less up here. But I started thinking about my life and choices that were made. And for every one of us here in your life, you can look back, and every choice has an effect, good or bad. And there's certain choices you've made in your life where you can pinpoint and say, this choice that I made set my path this way or that way. And you know exactly that was a turning point in your life. Every one of us in here tonight, we have our own unique story. We can look back and see the good and the bad decisions we made and how we've learned from them. And I thank you for the opportunity to share my story tonight with you. Don't worry, it's not too long, just like 15, 16 pages I have here. Currently, I live in Orlando, Florida. I work for a company down there called Siemens Energy. I'm also a youth pastor down there in my local church. I love working with youth because somebody cared enough to work with me as a young person. But my story started here. My hometown is Bethlehem. That's how you could tell I'm from here, because I didn't say Bethlehem, I said Bethlehem. So right here in Bethlehem, over in the Pembroke Projects, that's where I grew up. My father wasn't around for most of my life. My parents divorced when I was only 5 years old. So my mother and my grandmother raised me, my sister, and my two other cousins. We didn't have much, but we always had what we need. You had the roof over the head, the food in your stomach, and the clothes on your back. And honestly, when you're young, you're not really aware of what you don't have. So we were happy. One of the important things my mother and grandmother tried to instill in me was hard work and school. My mother was the only one of her siblings to even graduate high school. So for her, it was important for me to not only graduate high school, but do what she couldn't do, and was go on to college and graduate from college as well. My grandmother, who we call Iso, that's the name we give her, she is one of the wisest, smartest people I know in my life. She's one of my heroes. She is still one. I dip into that well of wisdom to this day. She never attended one day of school in her life. She never even went to kindergarten. As the oldest of her siblings in Puerto Rico, her parents kept her from that so that she could help raising the family and her brothers and sisters, who all went off to school and everything. That didn't stop her. She asked the neighbor to teach her how to write her name. And over time, she taught herself, with help of others, to read and to write. And then she made a decision, a very brave decision. Once she was older, she had her children, to move to the United States, not knowing a lick of English. But she did it because she wanted to give them a better opportunity than what she had. This same thought and work ethic carried over when she was raising us. School was important to her as well. The other day I was speaking with my sister, talking about how from elementary to middle school, I missed like one day of school. And she sent me to school that day, but they sent me home because I had 102 fever. So I get home, she feeds me, she Use that old home remedy, rubbing alcohol, wraps me in like 25 blankets. I sweat out the fever and sends me to school the very next day. One day of school I missed. But that's how important it was to her for us to attend school. Again, she didn't have that opportunity, so it was important to her for us to go to school. And my mother, where was she during all of this? My mother taught me what hard work is. As a single mother, she worked 2 jobs. She'd get up at 4:30 in the morning, drive to Hatfield. She worked at Hatfield Quality Meats. One way is like an hour, maybe an hour and a half. Get home around 6 p.m., have dinner with us, go to her second job from 7:30 to almost midnight, and do it all over again. She did it because she loved us and wanted to give us those things we needed. And this is why it was important for her, for us, to have that education. And through my school career, I had pretty good grades. I was in gifted classes in middle school, and in high school I also did well. Most people don't expect much from where I come from of people, but with the right people in your life and the right choices, you can do anything. And I stand here as a testament to that. And there's many others in here that I know somewhere in their life there was someone who just stepped in and gave them a helping hand. Now I remember when I was in middle school, I was in Northeast Middle School, and the way the tables were set up, for lunchtime, there was 8 people to a table. And just like the hierarchy of middle school kids, you know, there's the cool kids table, the guys and the girls, because y'all ain't mingling yet. And then there's all the different tables. So I sat at the cool kids table. The only reason I was there, because, you know, we had the athletes, the tough guys, the wise guys, the funny guys, and I was the smart guy. Every operation needs the brains. So I was thinking about this group of 8 guys, myself included, and where the decisions we each made landed us. Of the 8 of us, one of us went to prison by the time we were in high school for selling drugs. One dropped out of school after repeating the 8th grade 3 times. 3 more dropped out of high school because I guess they just didn't feel like going anymore. Another dropped out because he became a father, teenage father. Only 2 of us graduated high school and college. Even of the 2 of us that graduated college, the other, unfortunately, is also in prison for selling drugs. The choices we make. And I'm not sharing this to pump myself up and say, yeah, I'm the best of the crew of 8 guys, the smart guy. But I'm saying this to emphasize the point about making the right decisions in life. And there are plenty of people in here, those with the gray hair, the classics, that can share their story with you and can share the mistakes they made. That's wisdom. That's wisdom, Stapes. It's like, you know, I'm never going to hide the wisdom with the die. You know?
You lose your hair.
I try to hide my wisdom. One of the best decisions I ever made in my life was to seek that higher education. But I had no idea how that was going to happen. As I mentioned earlier, my mother was the only one of her siblings to even graduate high school. And I had no idea about the college application process, the choices, anything like that. And I've always found that term self-made man or self-made woman to be somewhat of a misnomer because everybody can tell. Somewhere along the lines, even Steve Jobs, who created this huge company, somewhere along the line, somebody invested in him to help him get to where he had to get. I had that person, and I still have that person, and he's sitting right here, Stapes. Stapes is crazy. I'm telling the truth. He's crazy. I don't know any other word to describe it, but he's crazy. Have a conversation with him for like 2 minutes. You're gonna think to your inner thoughts like, this dude is crazy. But he's the best kind of crazy. He's the driven crazy. He's the kind of crazy he says, you have this goal, I'm gonna help you reach that no matter what. I had this goal I wanted to accomplish, and he was gonna help me. Now, I first came across Stapes in middle school. He was a 7th grade English teacher, and my best friend, Matt Scott, was in his class. He was a year ahead of me. So Stapes' first year teaching, I was in 6th grade. And I, go to the bathroom and pass by the class, and I'm looking at him like, who is this crazy, forgive me, but who is this crazy white dude on top of the desk, energetically talking to his students? I'm like, what is going on? I want to be in there. And he had this interesting, he was crazy, but he got results from his students. And one of the ways he did this, he mentioned it earlier, he had this program called Cards for Kids. And basically the premise of the program is if you do well, good attendance, good grades, things like that, you would get an autographed baseball card. So not everybody really knew much about baseball, but you're like, wow, none of us had autographed anything. You're like, I want one of those. I'm gonna get me one of those. So it was a thing you wanted. Everyone wanted one, and it wasn't to turn around and sell it on eBay. But eBay didn't exist then. I'm not that old, I'm just saying. It was something that represented our hard work. And it was something that you tangibly had, you know, outside of your grades, and you're like, I earned this. And not everybody has this. So, you know, I wanted that card. And to give you an example of how important these cards were, I'd like to tell you a story of this kid called Ronald. Some of y'all in here might know who Ronald is. He wasn't the best student. He was involved in some bad things, drugs, he was in a gang, stealing cars, and as you can imagine, school probably wasn't the biggest priority for him. But Ronald was just like every one of those kids in Stapes' class. He wanted one of them cards. And Stapes is not handing them out. You have to earn those cards. Every grade, you have to earn those cards. Unfortunately, Ronald's story does not have a happy ending. He passed away in a car accident. And this happened years after Ronald was even in Stapes' class, but Ronald's mother asked Stapes to give the eulogy at Ronald's funeral. So when he went to visit Ronald's mother, he went into Ronald's room, and above his bed were those cards. It was a source of pride in something you've done well. Those cards meant the world to him because he earned them. Now, throughout the years, some students who even went beyond were able to meet some of the ball players and other famous people. Personally, I got to meet Bobby Thompson. And those that are baseball fans know who Bobby Thompson is. He's very famous for the shot heard around the world. I got to sit in his living room and just meet this humble giant of a man. And it's one of those things that you never forget in your life. There's no way that somebody, you know, that gained 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, you could connect them to all these people. Nobody would have connected Beni from Pembroke Projects to Bobby Thompson. You couldn't do that in 60 moves. I remember being on the internet a couple years ago and seeing that Bobby Thompson passed. And then all those memories came back to me, like, wow, I met this man who was so famous to many and just like a regular guy, and it affected me, and I was like, wow, I never would have had that opportunity had it not been for this crazy white dude who stays. But it was because of my hard work academically that he pushed for that I even had that opportunity. Now I look out at the ball players over here and you're like, man, he's giving away autographed cards, you know. Are we being used? We're taking advantage? Probably. But it was for a great cause. To this day, I asked Stapes, when I knew there was going to be ball players here, I asked him, you know, who's going to be here? So I pulled out the one card I had. So right there. Little did you know of those thousands of cards you were going to sign. One will go to this kid from the projects right over there, and actually something was used as a tool to make me achieve my best. There's thousands of kids Stapes has taught over the years. Multiply those cards you signed. How many kids are being blessed with those? Another card I received later on was at my college graduation, because like I wasn't in 7th grade anymore, but I was like, dude, I earned this card. John Ward. Another card I got right there, sitting right there, thank you. Now, admittedly, I didn't know, like I said, I didn't know much about baseball. Some of us didn't, but those cards, you wanted those cards. But even though I didn't know much about baseball, I knew who Jim Rice was. And I'm putting you on the spot right now. But I'm sure you're gonna be signing some cards. I'm letting you know I want one, but States, I'll earn it. If I have to get my master's, I'll earn it.
You might get your doctorate with Jimmy signing.
In my senior year of high school, to bring us back on track here, I had this decision in front of me, and I knew what the decision was. Over the years, Stapes would go to our house. He would, over in Pembroke, you know, those former students of Stapes know, he was welcome in everyone's home. He wasn't just our teacher, he was family. Thanksgiving, Christmas, he was always driving around, visiting us. I think he also did it for the free meals. I know, you can't cook rice and beans and Beni like my grandma. So every time he'd stop by our house over the years, he's like, he pounded into my head, Benny boy. That's what he called me, Benny boy. Benny boy, college. And I'd always tell him, yes, Stapes, this is in my plans, I'm gonna go. But I remember specifically when he went to me after my high school graduation, he was shouting, he somehow got in Stabler Arena amongst the students. I don't know how he does these things.
He's got connections, man.
He got connections. But, and you know, cheer me on, and then he says, Benny boy, what are you gonna do after high school? And I said, I wanna go to college, but I don't know how. Again, no one in my family had ever gone to college before, so we weren't sure of what that process was. He said, Benny boy, I'll help you. You're gonna go to college, and you're gonna graduate in 4 years on time. And with his help and the help of others, I did. So Stapes asked me, where do you want to go to school? Now this is before the B.E.S.T organization and all the help. Stapes was best for me. And I told him, DeSales University. Now, years later, he would tell me, like, internally, he was thinking, like, wow, you couldn't pay, I can't community college or something more affordable. I'm doing this on my own here.
$25,000 a year. $25,000.
You always taught us to shoot for the moon, so if there was a college up there, I probably would have went. So at the time, you know, we didn't have the benefit of a program like B.E.S.T, but he made it his mission to help me pay for college. He drove me to the school. We spent time in the financial aid office. I think they've named a chair after him. But we'd go back and forth throughout the week, and then there was other programs there like Act 101, things like that to help us out. And then Stapes introduced me to one of the other greatest people I've ever met in my life, and you've met her earlier, and that's Lenny. Lenny is one of, those that know her, is one of the most loving, caring people I know. She has a heart for young kids and helping them get beyond where they are. Thank you, Lenny. I love you. I'm forever grateful. You changed the path of my life. So now I'm in college, and I'm finding out very quickly how different it is from high school, academically. In high school, I was able to do well and get by with, I'll admit it, minimal studying, but I'd still get good grades, A's and B's. That doesn't fly in college. You have to work a lot harder for that A and B. And I worked, but there's this one grade that I got. It was the lowest grade I ever got. It was a D+. D as in, darn it, I got a D. So Stapes, you know, I'd show him my report card, and I'm like clenching up because I'm like, oh, here it comes. He's crazy. He looks at me very seriously. He goes, Benny boy, how do you, a Puerto Rican from the projects, get a D+ in Hispanics in the U.S.? I said, Stapes, we learned about Mexicans the whole time. I couldn't relate. You know, I can look back on this now and laugh. But to the students here, those that have gone through the B.E.S.T program prior, I'm telling you, no jokes, Stapes is crazy. If he has to, unless it's your graduation or a special event, the worst sight you want to see on your campus is Stapes. You hear a knock on the door, you'll be walking your friends to lunch, you see him walking up, you better turn, act like you dropped something. You act like you don't know him, just walk by, because he's coming right at you. And you better make sure of two things, that your work is done, and never lie to him. He's crazy. And I say this because, but he'll be tough on you, but it's because he wants you to succeed. And he's not going to let you do less than he knows you're capable of. If he sees that potential in you, all you students here that are receiving your scholarship is because there's potential in you and they see that. So that's why you've been given that. So remember, never lie, do your work. Stapes is crazy. You do those things, you're fine. So he'd check on me periodically, see how I was doing, make sure I'm on track, and he'd tell me, Benny boy, you can't fail. Benny boy, you can't fail. And I'm like, Stapes, don't worry about it, I won't. And at the time, I understood he didn't want me to fail because he knew I could succeed. He saw that in me. And there was all these people behind me supporting me. You know, Stapes, Lenny, Judy at the time. And that was definitely one of the reasons. But I was sitting and having a conversation with my sister the other day. She had Stapes as a teacher. She was like, you know, Stapes always has a bigger picture in mind. He always has a vision beyond. And I look out into this crowd tonight, and I see why I couldn't fail. Because if I would have failed being the first, you all wouldn't be here. And I'm so glad he didn't tell me that. That's a lot of pressure. But you see, in this scenario, I wasn't the only one making a decision. I decided to go to college. Stapes was also making a decision. He put his money on this horse that he would finish first. And if I had failed, we wouldn't be here tonight. There wouldn't be all these people celebrating the fact that they're helping you get that higher education, your dream that you're trying to achieve. He was risking a whole lot, putting that future into the hands of a young kid from the projects. Puerto Rican project, that's right. So as he promised me, I graduated from DeSales University 4 years on time. And I'll never forget walking across that stage. It's like right here. Stapes is right here. You did it, Benny boy. I'm like, how do you keep getting here? Like, he's crazy. So this is the card I got. The John Morton card. I said, I need my card. So the big question, why are we gathered here today? We're here to celebrate education. We're here to, and I'm just blessed to have that opportunity to come back here and share my story and just to look out at you and see that he multiplied 1 into 50 with the help of so many others. Because this is a vision that it's gonna pay its reward. When we invest in you and they invest in us, they're gonna get a return on that investment. So after I graduated college, I moved out to Orlando, Florida, and I've been there ever since. And like I said, when Stapes called me up, I said, absolutely, I'm there. I wanted to promote education because I know what it did for my life. I know how it changed my path and my destiny, whether you believe in God, a higher power, fate, or destiny. The decisions you make today and in the future affect that. And all the people that are in this room are here to support that. They're behind that. They want you to succeed. And then what happens is you get to a point where you can invest in others. I get to make another choice tonight that I'm so excited and proud to make. About 11 or so years ago, Stapes, Lenny, Judy, they invested in my future. And tonight, they always said, don't pay us back. I want to honor them by doing for you what they did for me. And I can now invest in your future. Franklin, the best. An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. This isn't about money. This is about me being able to give to you an opportunity to go further than maybe your parents or your previous people have gone. And then when you have children, or when you get a chance to be up here and speak to, which I'm sure will be 300 students at some time, 400, 500, that's gonna happen, Stapes. I'm not a prophet or anything, but that's gonna happen. I believe that. You turn around and you invest in that. That's a small part to invest in your future right now. I guarantee, I know in my heart of hearts, it will not return void. Thank you.